Autumn Nations Cup, England go through undefeated into the final. 24 points to 13 winners over Wales. Still not 100% sure how I should feel about this one because England have just been a cut above and absolutely the team to beat, and Wales' expectations for this one were low, pretty low. So maybe England weren't quite as good as we thought they were going to be. Maybe Wales were a bit better than we thought they were going to be. But at the end of the day, it's still a pretty fair result for England, you'd probably have to say. And if they kicked their goals, then it could have even looked a bit worse for Wales. But anyway, I will go over the key points of the game, the stats, and whatnot. And you guys can let me know what you reckoned about this one. I didn't watch it live. It was a 5 a.m. kickoff. And after being a bit of a lightweight and going to bed at 12:30 midnight after the All Blacks game, I decided to watch this one when I got up. I managed to stay spoiler-free, fortunately, which was good because I wouldn't want to know the result prior to the game being played. It's just the way it goes. Interestingly, there were high kicks early. Lee Halfpenny was having a little bit of trouble getting clear onto those high balls. He knocked on one early, and Wales got free kicked. Billy Vunipola tapped it from that one. Interestingly, not going for a second scrum. The next high ball was to Adams, and he managed to take it pretty well, which was pleasing, but they didn't stop with those high kicks. And the number of kicks in this game has been pretty standard for England throughout the Autumn Nations Cup thus far. My son actually came in to watch the game with me in the morning, after he got out of bed. And he recognised Wales by their jersey, which was really pleasing. However, he's been watching too much Super Rugby where we've got animal-themed teams like the Lions, and he calls them the Whales. So I guess he thinks it's a team based on whales in the sea. He doesn't know about whales. But anyway, he's only 4 years old. Almost 5. 7 minutes, England get the first scrum penalty. That one was from another high ball which got knocked on. And that was ominous, and it was a big area of concern for Wales. I mean, Wayne Pivac went into this one saying he's basically picked that front row because he thinks that's their best scrummaging front row, and they still conceded quite a few penalties at scrum time. And Samson Lee only lasted about 42 minutes before they brought Thomas Francis on. I think he conceded a penalty straight after the kickoff in the second half, and when he got penalised, they pulled him straight off. Interestingly, though, despite Wales being under the pump a little bit early, they managed to get the first try of the game through Johnny Williams. Slade tries a little kick through. Bigger manages to block the kick, and then he chases the loose ball right by the sideline, shows a bit of fleet footwork. He's got a bit of Gareth Bale in him, apparently, because he manages to keep the ball in touch, kick it through, and Johnny Williams with some proper skills to force that ball down. The TMO did have a look at it, and the TMO was clearly of the opinion from the tone of voice that that was a knock-on from Bigger. The block on Slade's kick was a knock-on, but the ref said, no, that's a charge down. So I was kind of the opinion he wasn't trying to control the ball, he was trying to get in the way of the kick, personally. So I'm kind of happy to go with the charge down decision. It's not like a charge down where he was running with his hands like the traditional one, but he was just trying to get in the way of the ball, I thought. But you could argue it the other way. I could see an argument for the other side. Either way, it's 7-0 to Wales after having not that much pill. 14 minutes, Itoje gets a nice little inside ball to Underhill. He gets it to Sinclair. They go close. In the next phase from there, they get it out to Slade. And he scores. He scores out wide. So they missed the conversion, which is a bit uncharacteristic. But they did miss a few kicks. I think 2 penalties and a conversion in this one. Owen Farrell usually a bit more reliable than that, to be honest. So it's 7 points to 5. Now you could argue, you could argue against Bigger's charge down being a knock on, but you could also argue that in the build up to that play, Bigger had taken a high ball and he seemed to get tackled in the air. And the ref just kind of played on. Now, speaking of my son, I constantly tell him about like the boy who cried wolf, and I think maybe Dan Bigger, because he seems to be constantly waving his arms around at the ref, that when something genuinely happens to him, you just think, oh, just be quiet, man. Because I saw the replay, they replayed it once, and it did look like he got tackled in the air, to which his reaction was, ref, come on, man, what are you doing? But he does that for everything, so you never know when to believe him. Just a thought, I don't know. But, yeah, either way, it was 7 points to 5. Dan Bigger was not a happy man. 18 minutes, England win another scrum penalty. This time it was Wales with an early engage. 20 minutes, Wales take a penalty attempt. It's 40 plus meters. It's a miss. And that all started from a big tackle on Billy V. I think it might have even been Dan Bigger who made the tackle. Both sides were getting a bunch of defensive turnovers. George Ford had a big line break, but he was turned over because he kind of got a bit isolated. 29 minutes, Farrell had a chance to put England in front with a penalty, and this time he made no mistake. Kicks it, so it's 8 points to 7. That's the only lead change of the game. England are out in front, and they will not be caught again. 32 minutes, the TMO has a look at Elliot Daly with a no-arms tackle on Adams. Again, I was probably pretty happy with that one. His arm seemed to kind of wrap. It was awkward looking, and the commentary team that was on my feed anyway were pretty incredulous that nothing came of it, but TMO looked at it and was happy. 36 minutes, Wales mess up a line-out in their own half, and Wales' line-out has been a bit of a concern, and this match it proved to be. Again, I think they lost 4 on their own throw, but I'll get to those stats in a bit. Wales' defence manages to hold, though, and they manage to force an English knock-on. 38 minutes, Wales get warned about continually conceding penalties at scrum time, which is not one you often see the refs warn teams for. More for like cynical infringements, but this was just, man, your scrum's under too much pressure. England kick a penalty from that scrum penalty, and it's 11 points to 7 at half-time. Wales have had to make a lot more tackles in that first half. Second half, like I mentioned, Lee goes off, Francis comes on, and the next minute, actually, England get free kicked for a scrum. At a scrum time, I think it was early engagement again, so maybe you're thinking it's going to turn around with Thomas Francis on. 48 minutes, Wales keep getting forced back. It was kind of painful to watch. Like, I know Wayne Pivac's an attack-minded coach, but the English defence still remains a bit of a ferocious beast. And they were just going backwards and going backwards. Eventually, they ended up with a 5-metre line-out. A defensive line-out. So they've been forced back, but England knock it into touch. So Wales got a line-out on their own 5-metre line. And they just ended up carrying it back. Like, they get forced back over their own try line. So it's a 5-metre scrum for England. Billy V goes blindside. He goes close. 7 phases later, Mako Vunipola goes over, and it's 18 points to 7. That try for Mako was essentially just built on that English defence. I think it started around about halfway where Wales had the ball and just backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards. So defence getting points in that instance, but Wales also failing to exit was pretty poor. 54 minutes, Wales win a penalty. It was interesting because that was their own high ball. They kicked the high ball into England's 22 and they managed to win a penalty from that one. So it's 18 points to 10. Daly looked like he might be injured, which was a bit disconcerting for England because Watson had already come on for Jonathan Joseph and they've only got the 2 backs on the bench, but he manages to see out the 80. 57, England concede another penalty and another penalty. I think Daly with hands in the ruck, then an offside penalty. Wales kick it, so it's 13 points to 18. 13-18, it's game on. Wales seem to finally have a bit of momentum. But from here, the rug kind of gets pulled out from them because they fail to really build any further momentum. That kind of shifts back England's way. 68 minutes, a penalty. 13 points to 21. 70 minutes, Willis gets a turnover. Ben Youngs with a high ball. I know people don't like Ben Youngs, but he's able to put the ball just outside that 22. Lewis Rees-Zammit takes it, but he gets turned over. It's a bit of a classic England play of recent times, that one. 24-13. Farrell misses one on 75. There's a scrum with a bit of afters. There's a bit of niggle. 77 minutes, Wales win a penalty at the scrum for a change. The celebrations were muted. They weren't kind of hooing and hawing after winning that scrum penalty. Sheedy trips himself up at one point, but yeah, there's nothing much doing. Eventually, England kick for the corner, but they can't get anything done at the end of the game. So it finishes 24 points to 13. And like I said, I'm still a bit torn as to how I feel because England were good, but could have been better. And Wales, I don't think they were great, but they weren't as bad as we maybe thought they were going to be. Yeah, I think the bookies had it, what was it, by 14? So they kind of beat the odds, but they still lost the game by 11 points. So it's hard to be happy with that, but maybe it's encouraging. I don't know. Possession 60-40 in England's favour. Run meters 320 to 112 in England's favour. England tackled 67 times. This is, I guess, a bit different from that last game where they had to just put on an absolute defensive masterclass. Wales ended up doing more of the tackles with 105. Both sides tackling at around 90%, so pretty efficient defensively. Defenders beaten 12-9 in England's favour. Turnovers won 9-7 in England's favour. Turnovers conceded 15-14. England actually having the one more there, but they had more ball. The line out, like I mentioned, 100% for England, 73 for Wales. I'm pretty sure it was 4 that they missed. The scrum was under a bit of pressure, so set piece, certainly a problem. I know Wales have had a change in their defensive coach, so maybe we saw a little bit of that change here. Kicks from hand, it was 44 to England, 33 to Wales. So early 40s is kind of what we've come to expect from England. I think it was 42 and 43 in previous games. So it's kind of par for the course. It is. People say it's boring. I don't think it's boring. It's just efficient. A lot of successful teams kick the ball a lot. And if you can put teams under pressure, you give yourself a chance to score. So, I mean, Johnny May's try last week was anything but boring. Yeah. Billy V finishes with 11 from 11 tackles. Launchbury has 9 from 9. For Wales, Botham had 18 from 18, which is a phenomenal shift. Alan Wynne-Jones had 15 from 15. There were some good moments, man. I mean, Botham at one point did really well to come across as Jonathan Joseph was eyeing up a gap, which I could see as well, and he ran straight for it, but Botham saw it and cut across just enough to ankle tap Jonathan Joseph to bring him down. Lewis Rees-Zammit at one point put in a good tackle on Watson when he was looking like he was clean through. So, yeah, certainly some good moments. Penalties conceded 12-7, so almost double for Wales. Speaks to England's dominance in some of those areas at the breakdown and at set piece. But anyway, I don't know how do you guys feel? If you're a Welsh fan, do you feel disappointed that you've lost 24-13? Or do you feel relieved that you didn't lose by more? They're going to play Italy in all likelihood in the next game, so that'll be a chance for them to pick things up, because in that first game under Wayne Pivak, they did really well against Italy. Italy were pretty disappointing against France, to be fair. England will play France. That'll be an interesting one to see what French side lines up with their rules about having to rotate the players after 3 games kind of thing. But, yeah. Interesting match. Still a bit torn. Still a bit torn on it. But, yeah, you guys let me know what you thought about this one. Happy, disappointed, satisfied. Looking forward to next week. But, yeah, if you're interested in England gear, they have Wales gear and New Zealand gear and whatnot as well. England Rugby Store is having a Black Friday sale, 20% off store-wide with a few exclusions. I think Lions gear is one of the exclusions, unfortunately. But I'll chuck the link to the description in there. They've certainly got a fair bit of good gear and 20% off. Can't argue with that. But, yeah, as I said, you guys let me know your thoughts on this one. And I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.